everyone. Welcome to the next installment of snackable content on the Personio HR Expert Hub. Today, I'm speaking with Nick Matthews. Nick is the EMEA General Manager at CultureAmp, an engagement and culture platform, and he's going to share some insights on how companies are adapting their employee engagement and performance strategies during the Corona crisis. Welcome, Nick, and thank you for joining me today.
Oh, very nice to be here. Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's jump right in. Here's the first question. What, if anything, are companies doing differently with employee engagement surveys and performance management during Corona?
I think it's what we're seeing more broadly in business is that leaders are communicating more. They're communicating much more frequently. And one of the key components of communication is listening. And so what we're seeing is that organizations are really trying to understand all the different types of information that are now relevant. And so as well as engagement, we're seeing other forms of information such as, understanding how the communication styles of the organization are working, how to support people in their remote working capabilities, how to support them through, wellness challenges or initiatives that they may be going through with the new normal. And you can see how that is now evolving into organizations trying to understand the return to work situation and the implications for that. And it also could be, for example, onboarding. So how are you onboarding people? What is the experience like to onboard people through this process? And so how that's really shifting in terms of engagement is that one is we're seeing different types of questions asked, very specific to the context we're going through. And secondly is the frequency. So you would often see organizations maybe doing a big engagement survey once or twice a year and then some small pulses every other quarter. We're now seeing organizations say actually weekly, fortnightly, monthly, we're needing to understand the changing context and how it's impacting our employees. So that's kind of engagement, is the frequency and the type of questions that people are asking. Secondly is around performance management, which is that performance management processes are often quite a heavy lift for an organization. So we're seeing a number of companies really think about whether they need to adjust and to lighten the process to make it easier for their employees to do that, juggling all the things that they are at the moment.
Yeah, that makes total sense. What are then some of the data markers or maybe even warning flags that HR teams and leaders should be especially on the lookout for when it comes to engagement?
Yes, and I think with the engagement questions and those other questions I mentioned, if you're seeing that regular cadence of pulses happening and you're seeing participation drop, that is the first marker that people don't think that any action is going to be taken off the back of that survey. Therefore, why should I complete it? It's not relevant to me. So if you see the participation dropping, that's the first concern. The second is really going past just the red and green scores. Red and green scores say what's positive and what's negative, draw the eye. A lot of people go to that straight away, and that's helpful. But actually, you need to dive deeper and look at what we call driver analysis. So really understand what is truly impacting the engagement score of your population. And that's something that we often say to folks, really look at that, because that's where the most important impact is going to come from in terms of making your bets on your investments. And then thirdly is really take an intersectional look at your data. What we've seen through this Corona crisis is that the experience of employees has changed based on socioeconomic status, caregiver status, whether people are parents doing homeschool, also whether people are introverts or extroverts. So looking at your data and seeing where there are differences of that experience across those sort of demographics is going to be super important when historically the office was a great leveler of that experience, and that's no longer the case at the moment.
So with all of that in mind, what pragmatic tips would you offer to companies that want to keep performance and engagement high during this time? For example, you mentioned introverts versus extroverts. That might be an example.
I think, going back to the sort of the first part of the question is making sure that if you are really communicating very frequently, that you are listening and that you're taking action on that. And if you can get that cycle going, it will really, really help employees feel like they're being listened to and they'll want to engage and they'll want to participate. And we've also found that for leadership, that two-way information flow is super helpful given how fast things are evolving right now. Second, within performance is a lot of learning and development budgets a lot of performance processes, promotions, pay cuts are in place at the moment across all industries. So really saying, okay, how can we also focus on forward-looking developmental conversations? Just because a pay or promotion conversation may have stopped doesn't mean that you can't be having conversations with you, if you're a manager, with your employees around how they can develop and grow during this period. So that's something we're seeing a lot of organizations focuses on that piece. And then lastly is around goals. I would imagine that pretty much every organization out there has changed their business strategy, either dramatically or a slight tweak based on Corona. And with that means that there are going to be new goals that are going to float down through the organization. So making sure that divisions, managers, and individuals have their goals reset, tracked throughout the next kind of 3 to 6 months, to make sure that with the limited time that people have, if they're working from home and juggling all of the things they are in their personal life, that they're making sure that their discretionary effort is going on the right things.
Thank you so much, Nick, for joining us today and sharing those insights. And please, everyone, check out our HR Expert Hub for more information and expert interviews.